Good day, all, and welcome to another edition of Local Legislator Live at 11. I am your host, Charles Gates, and we are a component of locallegislator.net, where our mission is to be the premier source of local election in the United States and an advocate for the sustainability of local businesses nationwide. As we continue our Roar interview series with candidates from the state of Virginia, primarily in the Hampton Roads and Richmond, Virginia metro area, we are joined by mayoral candidate from Portsmouth, Mr. Cliff Page. Mr. Page, how are you today?
Hey, Charles, great. And I'm glad to be on your show. And I wish you the best in the future going
Thank you,
on
sir.
because this is a very good public relations and public educational program you're pulling together here. And everybody needs it. And I'm glad you're going to be doing it. And I'm glad to participate in it also.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it. Well, for our viewers out there, we're going to jump right into this. Mr. Page, tell us something about Cliff Page. What is your education, your occupation, and why are you running for Portsmouth mayor?
Charles, I'm the hardest working guy running for mayor in Portsmouth right now. I spent 45 years in Portsmouth. My family was in the Navy, and I lived twice in the shipyard where I started my career by picking up bottles on the waterfront and gravitated up to uh, selling newspapers and eating with the sailors aboard ships. But I know that place like the back of my hand. I worked both in the pattern shop and the foundry, and I went to college starting out in political science, and we did a large survey of all the people from Newport News all the way to Virginia Beach. And we were so disgusted with the whole affair after we were finished that we all became jazz trumpeters, writers, and I'm a sculptor. But I finished up in undergraduate work in a 5 year professional degree in sculpture and printmaking. And then I went on to graduate school at East Carolina, which is a teacher's college. And I did a 3 year graduate program there in 2 years and did the undergraduate in a fast track in 4 years instead of five also. I was engaged at East Carolina in forming the Visual Arts Forum, which is the largest arts organization in the United States. And we had nearly half the budget of the student money, which was second only to UCLA. And I said, we're going to get that money. We're not going to let it go to the music school, which was renowned in the South. And we did. And so we sent people to Canada and Arkansas, and I funded 9 departments. I had nine. I was the president of the organization. I wrote their constitution. I was the budget committee chairman for the 2 years I was there. Um, I was a symposium committee chairman, and we brought in a symposium which was regional in the first year. In the second year, we brought in international people, even from New York, major artists, and so on. We turned that school upside down, and faculty still talk about it because all the students have long since gone. But those people who were working with me remember it forever. So we had 9 department heads, and one thing I learned in that is I always told them, I'm gonna get you money. And daggone, you better spend that money, every bit of it. And if you don't, you're in trouble. And you better spend it on exactly what you told me you were going to do and work for it because I'm going to work for you. And so that's the way I've always been engaged in politics. Um, Locally, I've done a number of things in Norfolk. I worked with the the Art Center and forming that and other things in the civic issues over there. After school, I was a Fulbright fellow to Italy and studied with their foremost sculptor. I was also did graduate work and studied in Mexico in San Miguel de Allende, and I studied at the National Institute for the Fine Arts there. I've taught everything in Portsmouth in every school practically there. I also taught at Morey and Booker T. Taught at the old Norcom, the new Norcom, and I have taught everything from Montessori to university here and abroad, and have written major curriculums at the national level and overseas. So education is a big deal, and I look at it very seriously. In Portsmouth, we need some serious educational reform, and I've been interested in that in pedagogy ever since I was in high school when I started writing my first paper in 1966 on that. So much of what I write in my platform here running for mayor comes from, in fact, that first paper in 1966 has been expanded on. As a Navy kid, I went to numerous schools and was always looking at schools and why this one works and that one doesn't work from a standpoint of architecture, teachers, books, the classroom, everything. And so I've continued that on into Europe, and I was teaching in Turkey. So I've looked and went to high school and graduated in high school in Europe and was looking at the European system, our system, various countries' systems, always trying to give them something that would get their kids, for instance, into British or American schools, but always studying their system and how we can improve our own. So education has been a big thing with me. Um, but I've also a man who's worked with his hands in pattern making and foundry. I was in the army. I'm a veteran, a Vietnam veteran, and I was drafted in 1968. I went over first thing I didn't even get out of school, out of the country. They put me through practically a year of schooling as a draftee. That was a real honor, I guess, or a life-saving event. But they put me in radio, and I went to radio mechanic schools, electronic schools later, and I was a commo chief in Vietnam with the 34th Engineers building the road to the hook up the Ho Chi Minh Trail with Saigon, which we didn't get to use, but our enemy did. But we then later on, uh, I went into the Merchant Marine at 9/11, and because I was too old to get in the military, and I spent some years there in the MSC, both with them and as a radio electronic technician, and then later on I went into work for NOAA in the deck department, and I've sailed in SIU and other ships. I've sailed all over the Pacific. I love to sail. I've traveled in many countries. I've lived in countries all over Europe, major capitals of the world. That's something I bring to Portsmouth. You can live here in 45 years. You may not even be 45 years old, but I've lived here for 45 years, but I've spent a lot of time in major capitals and major cities all over the world. And that's a real advantage I have because Portsmouth may be a donut and people just look at the whole. Well, I try to look at the donut, and I hope to turn this city around from being a sow's ear into a silk purse. Because as an artist, I can take a piece of scrap metal and turn it into something beautiful. And that's what I see here is something raw, and I want to refine it, and I want to do something with our city, which is something that most people don't have that advantage of. But that's what living in other places allows you to do. This is the hub of Hampton Roads. We were the center of Hampton Roads years ago when we had three things which were the stool that we sat on. One was the shipyard, one was the ports, and the third was the rails. And I plan to turn this around by bringing the rails back because this is what killed us in the beginning. And it did it in 1960 with the first tunnel. And it was the last tunnel that we built that didn't actually kill us. It just drove the wooden stake in our hearts to keep us from getting back up again and being what we once were. So we need to go back in history in urban studies. And I taught architecture. I've studied architecture and urban planning. I've seen all of the great things from Michelangelo to Haussmann to um, uh, Lafont and all the great people of urban planning. I've studied them and I've taught these things. And so I look at Portsmouth. I know our layout. I know how we were from the very beginning and our demographics and all this. And I intend to reshape our city into something that's wonderful. And we can because we were the hub of Hampton Roads. We were the transportation hub, and we've got to get back to that. That's why we died. I spent 5 years as a charter member of the Design Review Committee, and my fingerprints are all over the downtown, from Ambassador Landing to L'Obscur to the restaurant to Cafe Europe to all the fine dining uh, cafes on the outside. The 600 block of High Street was going to be turned into a asphalt parking lot, and I found out that, and I started calling business people and talking to my friends in various places, and we stopped that, and it became Prison Square, which is the revitalization of the downtown. And as part of the Design Review Committee, we had redevelopment, economic development, planning, and engineering on there, second highest paid people in the city. And I'm a sculptor making next to nothing. We got lawyers who are sacrificing their big bucks to be there. and an architect was just one stage up from me in the payroll side. But I beat my head against that a wall with those people to keep them from destroying properties and tearing them down, and yet we still have redevelopment with 150 empty lots that we've been paying taxes on or losing taxes, and we've been having to put up with our high taxes to compensate for that, and they've been mowing lawns for 30 years. I was trying to stop that kind of thing, but in the end, I watched these guys like a hawk in that committee and caught them red-handed in corruption. And I went to the council with the support of uh, the president of the American Institute of Architect, landscape architect, and interior designers, who were all personal friends of mine. The state chapter presidents and the Tidewater artists, they'd written letters in support of me, and I got them thrown off of the committee and replaced. Unfortunately, they replaced them with realtors, which caused a lot of trouble because there's nobody with a built-in conflict of interest when you're dealing with property than a realtor. But they did fire the manager within 2 months, and this is the kind of non-corruption uh, person I am. More recently, I called the HUD IG and complained about what was going on in PRHA, Portsmouth Redevelopment Authority, and they investigated them, and sort of like Watergate, they started peeling the onion, and the director was fired, and a number of their senior administrators, and the rest of them jumped ship, and the city had to replace their entire board of directors. So I'm a person who, if I people want me in there, I want them to give me a broom because I mean to clean house, and that's something that city has needed for a long time. I know where all the rats under the rug are, and I'm gonna step on them. I want this city to be clean. I want business people to come here and say we loved what was going on, and not say we're never coming back, and which is something I've had to deal with and hear listen for 30 years or more. That's some of the way I deal with things, and some of the energy I want to put into this city. Again, I want to turn this sow's ear into a silk purse, and I plan to do it.
All right. Okay, Mr. Page. Now, a big hoorah to you for your service, by the way, for your veteran services.
Well,
That is
we
for
need to
sure.
bring back the draft, because some of these people running around with skirts on and throwing Molotov cocktails and thinking that they're demonstrators, and they're not. They're just riders. They need a couple of years, and it'll straighten them out, especially if they get in the Marines.
And I am a Marine. So let's move
Semper
on.
Fi, Semper
Semper
Fi.
Fi, hoorah, hoorah, indeed. Now, there's an election coming up in November. When we show up at the polls, what is your full name going to be on the upcoming ballots?
Right, I've heard about that election, and my name is going to be the first one on the ballot. And the way they did it this year is the first guy on, he got to be first. So I've been campaigning since January with not a lot of money, but I've talked to thousands of people, and my Facebook site has hit about 9,000. And when people go to that ballot, they're going to see me at the first at the top, and it's going to say H. Cliff Page Jr. So they won't differentiate me with my father.
Okay. Now we understand that mayoral candidates are not required to disclose a political party affiliation. Do you associate with any parties?
I'm a member of the Republican Party. My family goes back to Reconstruction days in South Carolina. They used to say that my grandpa and Strom Thurmond were the only Republicans in South Carolina at one time. We come from the mountains of South Carolina, and our position is quite different than some other Republicans. We go back a long way. I've been a member back and forth in the party uh, for 25 years, I guess, and I'm a third district delegate this year, and I'm a state delegate, and I have I'm what you'd call a conservative, moderate, and a progressive all in one. I have different positions on different things, but I am a Republican. But we run in the local election not on a party affiliation, but I'm proud to say I am a Republican, and, uh, and so I don't mind telling people. A lot of people are asking me, "Are you a Republican?" And before I even get my mouth open, when I'm talking to them, and I said I'm Republican, they say I'm gonna vote for you. I said, "Well, good. Let me tell you what I'm gonna do, though." So, but I talk to all people, and A lot of people have moderate values. They have conservative values. They have some liberal values. But in Portsmouth, I'm more interested in people not by the color of their skin or the party they belong to, but I'm looking at their fingernails. If they got dirt and grease under their fingernails, that's the folks I want to talk to, because this is what our city is, and we are a people, we're working class people, highly skilled, and I want to bring those skills and those kinds of people. I want to bring them honor, and I want to bring productivity, and I want to bring self satisfaction and self realization back to those people, and satisfaction in what they do and their own status in life. And being a person who works with his hands is just as important being a PhD. In fact, they can make a lot more money. And I tell a lot of kids, because I go into schools and talk to them, that, for instance, an electronic technician, I tell them, you're in these classes because somebody in a counselor thought you were a goof off. Now quit looking at for sneakers and quit looking at the hip hop, and get in here on the computers, all equipment they gave you, and learn something about um, Ohm's law and how to take a measurement across a capacitor and put the breadboard together, and learn about Watt's law, and you'll do an apprenticeship, and in 2 years you'll be making more money than that fellow studying for PhD, and he'll be out there studying for the next 12 years, and at the end of it he'll have be deeply in debt, and he will be still living with mama. You guys are in the best class in this whole school, and you've been thrown into this class because you were screw ups. So I talk to people and tell them, hey, if you don't like the academic stuff, listen to what you're doing here. If it's a bandsaw or turning a wrench or whatever, those are the people that Portsmouth always been made up of. Those are the people I want to have self pride in their work, and I want to bring it back.
Okay. Now you said earlier that you lived in Portsmouth, I believe, for 45 years plus. Now, have
Mm-hmm.
you held any previous public offices?
Well, not elected office except in the college, in university at graduate level, but I was appointed to the design review committee, and I was for 2 terms. And like I say, I resigned from it. In fact, resigned from it and told them I'm resigning because I won't be a part of a corrupt committee. And I had them change the committee composition, and they did do that. But I've also went to Mayor Holly years ago and I said we need a percentage for the arts. And the reason we need it is because if we do it, you're going to be the first mayor in Virginia, and you can claim that as a kudo for yourself. But secondly, this is going to be the first city to have done it. And so I told him who should be appointed to the committee and so on. It didn't quite end up quite like that, and it did. But anyway, I was on that committee, uh, and the mayor formed it because I went to him. But I have been on other non-elected things. For instance, every comprehensive plan for the last 30 years I've been involved with in this city, and also every consultancy, urban planning consultancy, that we've had numerous ones. We spent somewhere between 500,000 and $1 million on these people. My fingerprints are all over their studies because I write extensively on how things should be changed. And in case some of the last one we had with Urban Planning Associates, in fact, um, they had plans and they said we can't put that in because we weren't hired to do it, but they put it into their drawings anyway so that they could subliminally undermine or encourage the people to think in those terms. For instance, I said we have to have clang clang trolleys in the downtown to bring in tourists and to give the character to our historic district. I said we have to have setbacks, easements, and parking restrictions done away with in our downtown if we want to minimize parking and maximize utility of the land. And so they wrote that in. So many things like that were put into these plans over the years. And as I say, as design review committee member for 5 years, my fingers and prints are on everything downtown, and voting and fighting things like, I mean, sometimes I lost. For instance, one time, uh, PRHA, Portsmouth Redevelopment, wanted to demolish 19 buildings in one day. And had the motion tabled, and I went to the building official and I said, I want you to go through these buildings. And he did. I said, what do you think? He said, I could move into half of them tomorrow. And I came back and I raised hell with those people. in the city, and I fought them, and they didn't get to tear them down. Took them 3 years to tear them down. But I said, I'm not going. We come to this meeting, and you want to tear down one building? That's a big deal. You want to tear down 19 at once? You think this must going to be a rubber stamp, and you've never met me, fellas. I'm going to give you hell, and I did for the next 5 years, but they got them all, every one of those, and we're still paying taxes on them because they could not rebuild on them. And one of the things I offered them years ago was I said, well, look, why don't we had a guy over in Port Norfolk who had a house moving service. I said, why don't we find these isolated single homes, and then you've got some bad dental work on other blocks. Let's pick up the house and move it over and put it in there so you'll have a streetscape. They didn't do that. That man's now dead. That was a lost opportunity. I presented many things over the years that could have been, some things were done, some things were not done. But the ones that weren't done were very frustrating, but I fought them hard. And those things that were done, well, the problem is we put a tunnel into this city, and like I say, we lost 50% of our businesses in 2 months. So I take it very personal when things were success, and I wasn't getting paid a dime for that, working every 2 weeks and seeing my name in the paper. And usually it was because I was fighting something. When you see this kind of stuff happen, you just go, man, what was I working for to see it undone by stupidity? But
Mm.
I've been involved in these kinds of things in Portsmouth and in Norfolk. I was involved in a number of things over there when I lived there too. People
Okay.
asked me to be on commissions and committees and things.
Okay. All right. Now, to our viewers out there, if you like this
Mm.
interview and you would like to see more like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you like our Facebook page. Connect with us on Twitter and Instagram. And remember to leave us a comment to let us know who or what you would like to hear from in the future. We will do our best to get that person or that organization on the air. Now, Mr. Page, you've had quite the extensive community involvement in Portsmouth and, as you say, in Norfolk. Now, how has this helped you prepare for this mayoral race?
Well, I ran 4 years ago, and so it's knowing what I did. I have the best website that probably any candidates running for any offices in this state's ever put up, and also I have an issues and positions, a path to the future, which is my roadmap. 4 years ago, it was 50 pages. This time I had to add 10 more pages because the situation is just that much worse. It's about a 20% increase. But, when you've been like I have, you've traveled, you've been here for a long time, you've seen a lot of things. You know how to improve things. You know where there are failures. You know how you can fix it, from schools to the way the city's laid out to the history of the city, all of these various things. You have the knowledge coming into it from urban planning, architecture, dealing with business, all of these things you add to this, and then you're dealing with the urban planning committee that was the most powerful in the city. You've seen all this. You've had your fingerprints all over. You put into those things means in which you think that you can change things proactively and that you can get some results. Also, I'll give you an example. The most important thing that I believe in, there's four things I'm looking for in changes, but the fifth plus one, which is the main thing that's going to bring money into this city, is I know the history of the city. So I know that we died as a city, not from the last tunnel, but from the first tunnel. The first tunnel, when they put in, ended the train system because the Seaboard Railroad started in Portsmouth, and the Seaboard became the CSX. And the CSX and Norfolk Southern are the two greatest railroads in the South and the East. So this was their heart. And when we lost the Seaboard, then the city changed. Because when you come into a train, and I've ridden trains all over the world. I've ridden in Vietnam before, just instead of flying straight home, I flew up to Japan and rode uh, the bullet train there, which is the first bullet train in the world. And then that was in 1970. In 1985, I was going to teach in Turkey, so I said, I'm not going to fly halfway around the world. I'm going to Paris, and I'm going to ride the TGV, which is the fast bullet train from Paris all the way down to Torino. And then I took trains all the way to Istanbul, through Bulgaria and Italy and to Yugoslavia and to Istanbul and on to Ankara. but that riding that second train in 1985. Subsequently, every European country has one, two, or three bullet trains. And China in the last 10 years has been bullet trains. So has 10 bullet trains. So I have followed trains and I know why they work and why they don't work. And I know intermodal transportation because traveling through Spain for a month on trains, I rode light rails from Madrid all the way to Portugal. I know about these things going back to the 60s. So these are things that as life events I can look into and see how does trains work and what other transportations work and don't work. And also I know why our train system worked and why we lost passenger liners and why, which was largely because of the mail which is being carried, and the same thing with the trains because the mail was being carried on trains and moved to airlines. So what I want to do in this city, knowing that we lost our population, we lost our center, the hub of Hampton Roads, because we allowed automobiles to go through the first downtown tunnel instead of stopping and getting off the passengers getting off the train, staying in, going to a restaurant, staying in a hotel, taking the ferry to Norfolk, riding the streetcar to Ocean View or to Little Creek to take other ferries to Cape Charles or over to Phoebus. This is what you had to do. You had to come into Portsmouth. And so Portsmouth captured a lot of the tourists and a lot of the travelers. We have to turn that around 60 years later. And what I want to do is bring in a high speed bullet train from Washington, D.C., Charlotte, North Carolina, through Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and through Richmond. This funnels the people who are the richest, most powerful cities in the mid Atlantic government wise, banking center, Charlotte and DC, through two capitals that have the Federal Reserve, they have tobacco, they have everything in Richmond, and you've got this educational center, you've got the research triangle, and you've got the capital in Durham. These people have several times more value in their up where they are than we do, and so their demographics are much different. They got more money in their pockets, bottom line, and they're coming to us. And I want them to come thinking, oh, we're going to go to Hampton Roads. Maybe we're going to the beach. And when they get home and they ask them, how was the beach? I want them to make an excuse and say, well, we really didn't make it. And it was the wife's fault, I'm going to tell you, because she heard about a restaurant. And then the next thing, she heard about a hotel. So we stayed in Portsmouth. Then she heard about the shops. And so we were all going through that. But by the way, we did kind of, I have to admit it, we did go to some of the nice bars downtown and we ate outdoors. And she loved this. I could hardly get her out of the shops, and the people were so nice. The merchants were great. And then Sunday we went over and looked at Old Town, and we heard about Truxton, we heard about Craddock. We want to explore the city, but you know what? We never did make it to the beach. But we decided we stayed there, and it was cheaper than the beach. But we decided we could have rented a car for $20 and gone to the beach. And now though, she's talking about maybe we should get a condo or maybe a duplex and fix it up or maybe a second house. And she's now talking to me, giving me a hard time and saying, well, maybe we should retire there. This is what we want. This is how we bring people with more discretionary income back into Portsmouth. And that's what we need because water and money are the same. They get into all cracks. They seek their own level. They get into all cracks. They get into every crevice and they float all boats. And that's what we need to get small businesses going in Portsmouth and not deal with the, like every other candidate I've run against, all they want to talk about is Fortune 500 companies, big boxes, all that. All those people send their money out to stockholders. I want money coming to us. I want the money to be put into our pockets in Portsmouth. That's what's going to make us rich. When the people come to us, they're going to think they got a bargain, and we know we're getting rich because there's such a disparity. When you can buy a house, a top-end house in Portsmouth for $350,000, and across the river it may be $600,000, and in Washington D.C. it may be $3.5 million to $6 million. That just says it all. We need those people coming down here. They're coming down here with their pockets loaded, and we're going to pick the lint out of their pockets, and they're going to go home with a smile, and we're going to go home with a grin. That's how I'm going to turn this city around.
All right, Mr. Page, I've got two more questions for you.
Yes,
If you
sir.
could summarize your four, if elected, summarize your four top goals.
the four things that I run on, I'm not going to talk about four plus one. The one is the train that I've just elaborated on, but the top thing is our tunnel and tolls. That has absolutely killed our people. 35 years ago, I guess 30 to 35 years ago, it's been, I wrote a big op-ed piece in the paper. It was about 800 words. You could get 800 words in an op-ed back then. Now you can't even get 800 words out of the Virginia Pilot anymore. It's like about 3 sheets. 10 years later, I wrote a second op-ed piece, and I said that we don't need that tunnel, and it's just going to kill our people with the tolls. You can't expand Hampton Boulevard going through Ghent. You just can't do it. It's just going to exacerbate traffic. And we've turned, these tunnels have turned Hampton Boulevard into a parking lot. They've turned London Boulevard into a parking lot, Effingham Street, and all the way on 264 down to Greenwood. People didn't think when they brought 4,000 sailors into the Naval Hospital and they brought 800 Coast Guard men when they moved it uh, from New York down here, that everything was going to be peachy. No, you got to give people public transportation. You need a cling clang trolley in the downtown, and you need a high speed train to get people around, and you need a commuter driverless shuttle over to Norfolk through the tunnel, and you need a light rail. You need comprehensive intermodal transportation along with high speed bullet train to bring people in, bring money in, but get our people here to use public transportation. By doing that, we keep the money here. And Norfolk and Portsmouth are very much the same. We're inner cities. Dealing with this does not work in suburbia. This is why the light rail out to the beach is a failure. I mean, if you take them to Virginia Beach, that's the only place I want to go. You can't take a light rail to suburbia any more than you can make a light rail or a high-speed train work from San Jose to San Diego. It's a failure. You've got to go from San Francisco because that's an inner city, but you got to go inner city to inner city. And San Francisco is practically the only city on the West Coast that is similar to our East Coast cities. But we can do that. So the tunnel is a major thing, and there are various little tricks and things I want to play with those folks up in Richmond to see what we can do. Particularly as a Republican, I was opposed to Governor Allen when he wanted, in this matter of taking off the gas tax, because the gas tax is a progressive tax. This is where we can use that 5 cents, and it's going to go up to a dime. Let's talk about paying down the mortgage on the tunnel. Let's use that to get these fees down, because we don't mind paying a tax that's reasonable, but we don't want to be raped, robbed, and abused so that our people are being crushed. And the people who are being crushed the most are our working class, and particularly the black population of working people. And sometimes I've talked to people, it's so sad, thousands of dollars in debt. And one woman just sticks in my mind because I know where she worked, and the company started in Portsmouth, went to Norfolk. She was doing 2 jobs over there and having to pay these tunnel fees. And she was just a working woman. That's sad. And she was in her 60s, but having to pay all that, and people are being gouged. So that's number one priority. The second priority is this Confederate monument. The Confederate monument is a important part of all our history. It's a pivot point in our history in the United States. You can't rewrite history, and you need to talk about it. But we have to save all our monuments. We have a future and we have a present. We're going to put up a lot of monuments, just like when I was in the design review. I got the mayor to set up a percentage for the arts. I copied that off of Baltimore and Seattle's, which are the oldest percentage for the arts, but I put something creative in there for Portsmouth. I said we need a historical areas fund so that we'll maintain all of our monuments in history. This is why tourists come, to see this, to learn about the history. So we're going to put up new stuff, but we certainly shouldn't be tearing down the old, and we shouldn't be allowing our monuments that are particularly this Confederate monument, which represented 481 men from Norfolk County and Portsmouth who lost their lives in protecting Portsmouth, the Commonwealth. And when they went off the first Battle of Manassas, they were the Portsmouth militia. They weren't even in the Confederacy at that point. Those people were saving their homes, they were saving their state, and we were invaded by an army that came into our state illegal and unconstitutionally. So these people, their monument is gone, and that's a shame. It needs to be brought back and repaired for what it is, and people need to be taught the real history of these matters. The third thing is the casino. I am absolutely opposed to a casino coming into this state, into this city. And we can't say a thing about the one in Norfolk except give them an example. But a casino, I've been in the merchant marine. I've traveled all over the world and lived in ports. I'm going to tell you, we've got a mafia in this area. And if we bring a casino in there, first thing that's going to happen is money is going to be laundered through that casino. Churches, I don't go into churches. I believe in the separation of church and state. I don't go politicking in churches, but I hope the churches get behind me and support me in this matter because I'm one of the few candidates who really are opposed to this bit. Many are going to do it on moral issues. I do it as much for just the fact that I don't like bullies and I don't like people, the rich people, picking the pockets of the poor. And that's what's going to happen with a casino. All businesses have lost leaders to get you in the store, and then they want to get you in the store and they don't want you to go outside anywhere. Believe me, if the big boxes do that, the casinos do it on steroids because they will give you a discount hotel, they will give you browsing rights at the buffet, and they will liquor you up. But the one thing they won't do is get you dope. But with these new liberalized marijuana laws, the parking lot out at the casino where they want to put out there next to TCC and right across from Cavalier Manor, I guarantee you, you're going to be able to see the green haze floating off of that parking lot all the way over in Norfolk because there's going to be dope dealing out there. And that's just going to cause a lot of problems. In casinos, historically, there's 50 to 52% of the people in casinos who are alcoholics, drug addicted, or gambling addicted. And they want to do everything to pick your pockets in that place and send you out with no money and not even have a bus ticket home. And a lot of people end up feeding pawn shops with everything they own so they can get a bus ticket home. We don't need that. And there is a high incidence of petty crimes in the parking lots. And it's going to get worse with the liberalization of marijuana because right now, a majority of the hard dope, fentanyl, heroin, crack cocaine, and speed is coming out of Cavalier Manor. It's not like it was 30 years ago when I knew all the major people in a government and in schools and everything were living there. The neighborhood is falling down, and housing that they're trying to put up in that area, I've objected to, is saying you want to put condos and stuff and no garages and whatever, and you should be building to a higher scale to make the people in Cavalier Manor keep up with the Joneses and improve their neighborhoods. But a lot of that dope dealing is coming out of that neighborhood and it's being pushed into the weaker economic neighborhoods like Craddock, Prentice Park, and Dale Homes to stop that. And the thing about it is that's where all the gunfire is coming from, majority of it in the city. And I'm, as a commo chief, believe me, I fall out of bed at 3 in the morning all the time calling 911 and I pinpoint exactly where it's coming from. And then I go sometimes out in the daylight to pinpoint exactly where it's come from. So I know. And this, if you're going to stop, and I've talked to 3 women just in this race who've lost children. And I remember one lady in particular is just so demoralizing. Her eyes were just like, she'll never get it back again. And they had lost little children, you know, weren't even in school practically. We've just, because of wild gunshots, these weren't people dealing dope. These were just in the way people. We've just lost some children here in the last couple of days, a year-old child. If you want to stop the killing, if you want to stop the gunfire, you got to stop the hard dope. That's the bottom line. And I'm not easy on crack cocaine. That's the worst of all of them because they do that crack cocaine. They think they're Superman or some kind of superhero. They'll kick your, they've done it to me. I know they'll kick your oak door down with a foot. They think they can do anything, and they just killing themselves with that particular drug. The fentanyl is just killing themselves because they don't know what they're shooting up. But that drug is one of the worst. And so I'm opposed to these hard drugs. And if you bring a casino in, guaranteed you're going to have more problems, not less. And it's going to be right next to TCC. That's the dumbest thing in the world. You're going to have, as somebody who's taught at TCC and was a student there, I know what it's going to be like. As a professor is going to go, hey, where's Johnny today? Well, last time we saw him, he was over there playing the one-armed bandit, and he was down to his last quarter. Okay, next meeting, it's going to be, where's Johnny? Well, you know that quarter he didn't have? He was going out in the parking lot, and he saw one on somebody's floorboard of their car and broke in their window, And the next thing you know, he's down there with Sheriff Moore, and he's staying at his hotel, and we're having to pay his $32 rental. That's not good because we've only got about 13 cops on any one shift in this city at any one time. You take a cop and put them down there having to pick up people just to take them down to the jail. That's somebody's could be doing something else. We don't need that. Their security is not going to watch the they may watch them on the camera, but they're gonna not going to monitor that parking lot. They're watching the one-armed bandits and the slot tables and making sure nobody's stealing the big money. That's all. That's the way all businesses are. They're not going to be monitoring that. But when somebody does something, it's our police who are going to have to respond. It's our jail. We're going to have to pay for the hotel room down there for these guys, and it's going to cost. It's going to exacerbate people being thrown in jail. I don't want that. I want to clean up this city and get rid of the hard drugs, and I don't want things that are going to bring that kind of stuff to us. The fourth thing is this Second Amendment. The Second Amendment says that we have a right to keep and bear arms, and that right will not be abridged. And I support that, bottom line. And so I've spoken out for these matters, not just as a running because I'm running for mayor. I've spoken out before in front of council and everything and stood with Second Amendment people. I've spoken out for 25 years against the tunnel. I've been a prophet and who's not recognized in his own land. And it's usually after the things go over my head and I can't stop them that people recognize, hey, haven't we heard that before? And so I'm telling people now, this may be your last chance, but I am fighting for these issues because these are the major issues for the last 8 years that Portsmouth has been dealing with. I take firm positions on them, and I know that by doing these things or turning these things around, we will get these issues off the table and we can do the things that we really should be doing, coming together. And as like Mayor Holly used to say, the Portsmouth family. And we have to start with the small businesses and those small businesses that are the wife has got the kids in school, she's in the PTA, she works there, her kids work there in the summer, their friends work there, the husband is taking care of that light, that street light, the trash on the sidewalks, the bums hanging out. He's down at the city council. The just like Harold Sporting Goods, the you went down there, the girls got their pom poms and the boys got their first jock strap down there, and they bought their catcher's mitt, and they when they went out to the ball field, it was Harold Sporting Goods out there at the baseball diamond, and all the other small businesses supporting him. In the back of the annual, it was the small businesses that supported this. These big corporations don't do that. That's what makes the family, and why these people want to stay in business. Even if they're losing money, they will do everything possible to not take a salary, but they'll keep their business on open so that they'll pass it on to their children and their children's children. And these people, when they open a second business, this is a fact, when they open a second business in Norfolk or Virginia Beach, people would still come back to Portsmouth because this is where the original owners were, and they were so friendly. And this is what Portsmouth was known for: our quality products, our quality merchandise, the friendliness of our sales force, and the personal relationship businesses had with customers and tourists and everybody. And people from all over Hampton Roads used to come to our small shops. That is what's changed Portsmouth. And it did it because we lost the train, we got the tunnels, and all our people went elsewhere. And I have watched over 40 years so many business. I've woken up in the middle of the night just seeing these like sheep jumping a fence. All the businesses I've seen and manufacturers that this city has lost, they're small businesses. And I mean to reduce the tariffs and taxes on these small businesses and put them on the franchises and put them on the corporations to give an equal playing field for the little guy. And I mean to make it simple for the little guy with an entrepreneurial spirit, the man who wants to get in business, but he doesn't have that master's in accounting, and he shouldn't have to have it to do business. That's what we need. And I want to make people have a vision, have a dream, and we're going to make it so that people can come to Portsmouth, set up a business, and people can shop over here. And we're going to bring everybody together. That's the whole thing. Money is something, not only does it seek its own level and float all boats, but it brings people together because it's transactional. And we're going to keep that money in Portsmouth, and we're going to become rich. We're going to become the hub of Hampton Roads, and we're going to change from uh, being the sow's ear into the silk purse. So if I become the mayor, jump on board quick because you're going to miss an opportunity if you don't.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Page. And last question for you is
Yes,
how
sir.
can people get in touch with you and find out more about your campaign?
Okay, on my website, which is Cliff Page number 4 Mayor. Do that without any spaces. Cliff Page 4 Mayor.org. They can see my website. It's the best website anybody's ever put up in the state, guaranteed. And it has your issues and positions, a path to the future. Don't print it out unless you want the Sears and Roebuck catalog in the outhouse, because if we have another second wave of this coronavirus, you might need it, but otherwise you're going to end up with a lot of paper. Read it online. Don't try to read it on your smartphone or you'll go blind. But you can see that. You can go on my blog, and it's tied in with Facebook. So more current things that are happening right now are out there. More long-term things are in the blog also, major issues, and then you can see things by the bullet list. You can see it by the paragraph bullets. You can see it in 61 pages. I give it to you in any way you can digest it. But go out to that website, and it will. If you hit the comments, or you can put your address down there. We got some signs coming out in a couple of days. Give me your address. Give me your information. We'll try to get you a sign. If you hit on the contribute page, it's got some boxes you can help with the campaign, and you can check off you want to sign or give me some money, man. I need the money. Everybody needs the money. I'm up against guys with deep pockets that are trying to buy this election. I'm just running on plans and policies and trying to tell people the truth. I'm the little guy fighting for the little guy. But if anybody wants to contribute, have at it. I need you. I need your help in many, many ways, not just money. But the bottom line is you can go out to my website and you can spend a week out there, or you can spend out a few minutes, but you'll find every way necessary to get hold of me. For my you get me on Facebook, get me on the telephone, whatever you want to do. People call me, and you can email me, and that's the way you get hold of me. And it's
Yeah.
cliffpageformayor.org, or it's Cliff Page, and it'll tell you out there, but it's cliffpage4mayor@gmail.com. You
And
can get
you
me
are easy to get
address.
in touch with, I see, indeed. Well,
Yes, sir.
thank you so much, Mr. Cliff Page, running for mayor of Portsmouth. And to our viewers out there, make sure you check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel often. These interviews that we have with the candidates in the Hampton Roads and Richmond metro areas will not be streamed live. We are known for going on the air most mornings at 11 o'clock. However, because there are so many candidates, it would not be fair to all if we allowed all to go live. Plus, there aren't that many days until the election, and we would not be able to do that. But we will be putting them on, and shortly after these sessions, we will be posting them to our social media platforms, to include YouTube, Facebook, and the like. Thank you so much for being here, guys, and we want you to check us out. Make sure you leave us a like. Let us know what you're looking for next. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, and we will hear from you soon. Mr. Page, once again, thank you very much for being our guest this evening, and we will see you on the other side. And remember, to our viewers out there, we're not global, we are local. This is Local Legislator Live at 11. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you, Charles, and I hope that you have real success for this, because you're a public asset, and especially in this, people need to recognize that, in my opinion, I've always had two interests in government: local and international. And I always study foreign affairs and stuff like that because I've lived overseas. But local government is the closest to democracy in this republic that we have, and I consider it the most important of all government at the local level. And what you're doing here is vastly important. People often get caught up in who's going to be the president, and that's the only time they vote, even though once every 4 years. But these local elections and our state legislatures, these are enormously important. So you are really performing an important uh, function right now, particularly because of these quarantines when local candidates do not have forums, they don't have public venues to go out and talk because of the quarantine. And this is a means for everybody, and particularly the way you're doing it, putting on YouTube and putting it on Twitter, other means to get this message out, gives people a lot of different avenues to reach out and find out what who their candidates are, what their candidates stand for, and people are often talking to me, and they've got so many candidates running in Portsmouth right now that this is incredibly important. This is you're a real asset, and I wish you the best in the future, and keep it up, Charles.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that so much. And we do open this up for every candidate in the Hampton Roads and Richmond metro area. We invite all of you to come on here, whether you're running for the clerk of the courts, mayor, city council, or school board, or the like. We want to hear from you because, like Mr. Page says, it's difficult to get out there now physically. So we want to give you a platform to share your message with your constituents. Again, take care, guys, and we will see you on the other side. Mr. Page, it has indeed been a pleasure. Have a good evening.
Adios, adios.